tous, je m'appelle Hanson, merci pour votre présence. Je serai l'animateur pour cette conférence de presse aujourd'hui. Hello everybody, thank you for being here. My name is Hanson, I'll be the host for today's press conference. Aujourd'hui, nous avons le privilège d'accueillir le sénateur Yuen Hao ici pour soutenir le service famille chinoise de Grand Montréal. Today, we have the privilege of having Senator Yuen Hao with us in support for Chinese Family Services of Greater Montreal. The Honorable Yuen Hao is voicing caution against the Foreign Influence Registry, and he is a co-organizer of the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Exclusion Act for the Senate on June 23rd this year. We will first have the panel presentation from each of our speakers, followed by a Q&A session.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out to this press conference. I am Senator Yuen Hao, an independent senator from British Columbia. It's my pleasure to be here in Montreal at the Chinese Family Services of Greater Montreal to show my support for this organization and for SinoPhobia Press amidst the unfounded allegations and the stigma that has been placed on these two organizations. Let me start by clarifying on behalf of all of us here on this podium and all of us associated with the two organizations that we are against foreign interference. We are against foreign interference by foreign states, by foreign NGOs, by foreign individuals, and we are especially against harassment and intimidation of Canadians by foreign states and indeed by anyone. When allegations of foreign interference, particularly allegations of harassment and intimidation are made, it is extremely important that these allegations are supported by evidence, that the allegations do not go any further than are absolutely necessary for investigative purposes, that the allegations are made known to the individuals and organizations involved, and that every effort is made to avoid the collateral damage that comes with allegations that may prove to be false. My friends, we're in a situation today where such allegations have been made against Family Services of Greater Montreal and SinoPhobia. Allegations that have not been supported by evidence. We don't even know what the so-called illegal activities by so-called Chinese police stations are alleged to have taken place at these two places. But we have heard in recent days from the Minister of Public Safety that all such activities have stopped. And yet we don't know what these activities are. This center is still functioning, is still providing services to the Chinese community and others. I was just upstairs on the 3rd floor witnessing the good work that the organization is doing for people who need help with immigration, with legal issues, with family services, with psychological difficulties, helping students, helping new immigrants, helping old immigrants. And they've been doing this for 50 years. The fact that they can continue to provide these services is a testament to their fortitude and resilience. But the fact that they've been named by the RCMP, by the minister, by many of you in the media, named and to some extent already found guilty of having done illegal activities that haven't been explained has made their work more difficult. It has caused members of the community to hesitate to come and seek services. And they suffer. Not you, not the minister, not the RCMP, but the individuals who would come here for services and who are hesitating to come because they worry about what might happen if they come here. They are the ones suffering. So I plead with all of you to be prudent and to be fair and to be ethical in your reporting. My friends, I'm happy to take questions very shortly, but I just want to conclude by saying that there are consequences to the type of reporting and the allegations that are made, and that what we are pleading for here today is fairness, due process, and the rule of law. It is deeply ironic that we are having this conversation today on the 100th anniversary of the enactment of the Chinese Exclusion Act. This is possibly the worst legislation ever passed by the Canadian Parliament, 100 years ago. And today we're having this conversation about a kind of stigmatization, a kind of exclusion that maybe is not as bad as 100 years ago, but actually it's worse. It's worse because we're still doing it even though we had the experience 100 years ago. We should not be judging people on the basis of wild allegations and unfounded claims. We should not be judging people because of their ethnicity. We should not be judging people because of which countries they come from, or indeed which countries they associate with. And most important of all, we should not be judging Canadians because of the views they hold. And I plead with you once more before I turn to my colleagues on the panel to show some respect, to show some restraint, to exercise fairness and judiciousness in your reporting, not just for the sake of these two organizations, but for the sake of the many people who count on them for the services that they provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we have Ms. Mei Chu, who is representing the Chinatown Roundtable. Madame Mei Chu, représentante de la table ronde du quartier chinois.
Hello. I want to thank everybody that came out today, because if you are reporting on this press conference, it's because for the first time, vous allez donner l'impact de toutes ces allégations sur nous, la communauté chinoise. Merci. Alors, je suis la coordinatrice de la table ronde du quartier chinois. Nous sommes une espèce de table de concertation qui réunit tous les différents secteurs du quartier chinois. Puis, la possibilité de perdre un service essentiel à la communauté nous inquiète beaucoup. On peut même perdre tout cet immeuble pour lequel nous avons lutté pendant des années et des années. So I'm just going to read my statement quickly. Since the decision of the RCMP to name the Chinese Family Services of Greater Montreal and Centre Sino-Quebec as subjects of investigation for being Chinese police stations publicly, these two organizations and its community members have suffered greatly, is just what Senator just described to you. These community centers have been stigmatized to the point where community members were not able to seek the vital services they need. I know this personally, and they suffered from funding cuts that have left them at continued risk of closure. Cette situation a mis à risque des membres vulnérables de la communauté chinoise et de l'ensemble du quartier chinois, ce qui a eu un impact sur les moyens de subsistance et la qualité de vie de nos communautés. Il s'agit des deux seuls centres communautaires chinois au Québec dont le mandat et d'aider à l'intégration des nouveaux immigrants, d'offrir des cours de français, de sortir nos aînés de l'isolement, d'aider les femmes victimes de violences et de contribuer à la réduction de la pauvreté. Ils constituent tous les deux un soutien vital pour l'ensemble de la communauté du quartier chinois. The help given by these organizations is so fundamental to the well-being of the community that just 2 days ago, over 300 community members and leaders, some of whom are here today, attended a fundraising dinner to make sure that the Chinese Family Services of Greater Montreal can continue to survive. We thank the courage of the community who pledged to act to protect our fundamental human rights, saying that if this can happen to organizations with nearly 5 decades of exemplary service to the community, then anyone can be the next victim. After being faced with the contradiction between the government's announcement that police stations have been closed and the ongoing reduced operations of the community centers, the RCMP now claims that the investigation is still ongoing and that they have put an end to activities that perturb the public. I asked you as investigators, reporters, to ask the government what this means. Just in the fall, in this very room, we organized the first ever municipal candidates debate. A lot of people attended, people who were angry at the city, asking why isn't there more social housing? Why don't we have more funding arts and culture, etc. Is this an example of the perturbation activities that the RCMP now has successfully closed down? There's line dancing in this room. Wow, excuse us. La table ronde du quartier chinois demande que ce dossier soit réglé le plus rapidement possible afin que la communauté puisse commencer à guérir et que les réparations soient effectuées, en particulier pour rétablir le financement perdu pour les services communautaires essentiels. And I just want to say, on a personal note, that I spent 5 years of my life being the executive director of the Chinese Family Services of Greater Montreal. I know the amazing work that these workers do. When you attack community services, and the Chinese community is no different from other organizations in Quebec, it's mostly women who do this social work and community work. And all the women who are working upstairs are so fearful now that they may lose their livelihood, as well as community members in need who are now afraid of being investigated if they dare come here for help. So thank you for listening to us.
Nous avons Walker PCQ. Next we have Walker from the PCQ to address the Chinese Quebecers.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello. Je m'appelle Walter Chientom. Je suis un représentant pour les Chinois progressistes Québec. I'm a spokesperson for the Progressive Chinese of Quebec. As May has said, and as well Senator Wu, it's all about the impact that these allegations have had upon our community. Since the 8th of March, 2023, our community has been living in fear and in shock. When we take a look at the people that are affected, the women who are at risk, the new immigrants who are trying to get employment and access to French classes, These are the people that are affected. Since that time, and more recently, peut-être vous êtes au courant, ou peut-être vous n'êtes pas au courant, il y avait, suite à cette annonce par le GRC, qu'effectivement, les coupures budgétaires par le gouvernement provincial pour que le service famille chinoise et effectivement Sino-Québec ne sont plus capables de donner des cours de langue français pour des nouveaux immigrants qui ont besoin. Les contrats pour effectivement avoir des recherches d'emploi n'ont pas été encore renouvelés. Alors, dans ce cas-là, OK, c'est qui est impacté, c'est qui est affecté, c'est qui souffre. C'est extrêmement irresponsable pour des autorités de cibler effectivement ces deux organismes. Et c'est encore plus irresponsable pour certains médias de mettre toujours le nom de ces deux organismes en lien avec des accusations d'actes illégaux, des accusations de postes de police. Parce qu'effectivement, on regarde, c'est qui les gens qui sont affectés? Moi-même, OK, je suis avocat en droit d'immigration et réfugiés. J'ai effectivement défendu des clients qui ont effectivement plaint de la persécution politique, OK, contre les Chine. Mais par contre, ici, au Canada, au Québec, à Montréal, ils viennent pour chercher l'aide à ces deux organismes communautaires parce qu'ils savent que ces deux organismes communautaires ont leur bien-être vraiment au cœur. I myself am an immigration and human rights lawyer. I have defended many of my clientele are refugee claimants from China who at times have claimed political persecution from the Chinese government. But at the same time, they come here, the Chinese Family Service, and as well to Sino-Quebec, to get help because they know that here in Montreal, in Quebec, in Canada, organizations, these two organizations, community organizations, they have really, okay, their welfare at heart by associating in such an irresponsible manner these two organizations with secret police stations, and particularly by flashing the names of these two organizations every time that there are headlines about secret police. Essentially, it's creating an atmosphere of fear. My own mother asked me, Walter, don't get involved in this stuff. You're gonna get in trouble. I said, no, Mom, this is the right thing to do. Okay, she's 80 years, she fled China herself. But at the same time, she comes and gets services from Chinese Family Service because of the wonderful things that they do. Just to finish off, I just want to bring up, as have the other two speakers, the fact that supposedly the secret police stations no longer are functioning. My question is, here in Montreal, did they ever even exist? And more importantly, is Chinese Family Service or Sino-Quebec, have they ever been secret police stations? And if not, then there has to be a lot of explaining because there's been a lot of people that have been hurt. And more importantly, the community and these organizations have been hurt. Thank you.
need answers.
Thank you, Walter. Next, we have Tina Liu from the Canada-China Friendship Alliance.
Bonjour tout le monde. Mon nom est Tina. Je vais parler anglais. Mon français n'est pas vraiment bien. Okay. We just heard from Senator Wu, May, and Walter. The Chinese community has contributed a lot to our Chinese Canadians. On March 9th, 2023, the media report that RCMP is investigating Chinese community. The two Chinese communities, we are really shocked. And then myself feel scared. We, a group of Chinese Canadians live in Montreal, welcome the investigation of possible foreign influence agent. However, before the investigation produce a definite conclusion and solid evidence, the report by the media and the statement by the RCMP are already a big blow to our Chinese community, result in incident of racial discrimination to our Chinese. The Montreal Gazette, Iowa State, the federal police force said Canadians of Chinese origin had been victims of possible activities conducted by the two centers. It is totally wrong. We are Canadians from China. We actually benefit a lot from these two communities. My friend is sit at back. If you want to know, you can ask their experience. How they get the service from the two Chinese communities. CC because of the contribution of the two communities, CC Lee was elected as a Brossard counselor. But after the investigation, the two center and CC Lee is out of normal work. It is reported that the allegation of possible China police station from where? From where? This is a very good question. After the allegation, because I really care this is, so I do my own research. Let me tell you what I found. It is reported that the allegation of possible China police station originate from Safeguard Defender, a foreign organization in Spain. How does a foreign organization come up with such an allegation? Is this foreign organization routinely collecting information on Canadian citizens? Is this organization spying on Canadian citizens? Should RCMP investigate and verify the claim by the Safeguard Defender first? All the reports about the China police station, so far are based on speculation, no proof, assumption, and interpretation of fact out of context without providing a single piece of evidence. This is a problem. This is really big problem. The end result of this report is defaming the Chinese community in Canada. Not only Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, the other province as well. The allegation, without verification, actually manipulate the opinion of the public. This is very, very dangerous and very bad to our healthy society, to our Canadian democracy. Very, very bad. So far, we don't know if this allegation is true or not. Yet, the public fear is already is burning the anger of Canadians. Now, after 2 months of destruction, the damage to Chinese community, to Chinese Canadians really hurt a lot. We suddenly hear the news that RCMP has successfully shut down all the Chinese police stations in Canada. That means the 2 community centers here as well. Then we get news. The Senator Leo Osako called to shut down unboarded agents of Beijing in Montreal. That's the 2 Chinese community. What kind of operation is it? How dramatic. So this is a statement from a group of Montrealers. I add my own experience. I just mentioned Senator Liu. Senator Liu, I will suggest I am an agent of the Chinese government, and I should be investigated. His witch hunt really hurt me mentally. I received threatening phone calls and emails. My reputation actually is damaged. I would like to beg Mr. Liu, please stop your witch hunt on innocent people, me, the others, the Chinese 2 communities. I have been feared because I stand up. My family, my friends, share the true value of Canada. I really, really appreciate you are here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nous allons passer à la session des questions. Nous demandons aux journalistes de limiter leur question à une question avec un suivi au besoin. We'll be moving on to the Q&A session. We ask journalists to limit their questions to 1 question with a follow-up. For Chinese media, we have Ms. Zhou, who will be translating for us. We will go by order of hands raised.
Bonjour, Annie Guillemette au 98.5. Je ne sais pas qui peut me répondre en français.
Soit moi ou
OK, monsieur le sénateur,
Je suis désolé,
mais on peut,
je pose la question simplement.
Mais s'il peut répondre en anglais, on peut lui traduire la question.
Ah, mais c'est pas une question de traduction, c'est une question d'enregistrement.
Oh, d'accord.
Pour diffuser.
Désolé.
Je voulais savoir, à partir d'aujourd'hui, qu'est-ce que vous réclamez? Une fois que vous avez dénoncé les impacts, vous réclamez quoi? Est-ce que vous voulez, je ne sais pas moi, des excuses du sénateur? Est-ce que vous voulez, pas vous, là, l'autre sénateur, qu'est-ce que vous réclamez exactement à partir d'aujourd'hui? Ah bien, il va falloir prendre la place où il y a les micros, pas celui-là, les autres.
On peut déplacer nos chaises.
Oui, alors, qu'est-ce qu'on réclame? Première chose qu'il faut réclamer, c'est la fin de cette enquête de GRC. Parce que c'est comme une épée de Damoclès au-dessus de la communauté. Parce qu'aussi longtemps que l'enquête n'est pas finie, dans ce cas-là, on peut pas, OK, avoir la paix. Alors, finir avec l'enquête. Et on espère aussi que toute la publicité qu'on fait, que, effectivement, la part communautaire qu'on reçoit ne va pas empêcher le GRC ou d'autres autorités fédéraux de ralentir davantage cette enquête. Parce que le plus long qu'il allonge l'enquête, le plus que la communauté va souffrir. Et c'est ça le problème. Et ça, c'est le numéro 1. Quand on finit avec cette enquête, qu'effectivement, s'il y a des preuves, montre-le. S'il n'y a pas de preuves, arrête de niaiser. Effectivement, rendre justice à nos organismes communautaires.
Je veux juste ajouter que de la table ronde, on demande des réparations, on veut des endommagements pour les dommages causés à la communauté, mais surtout, comme j'ai dit avant, on risque de perdre tout cet immeuble, tout ce beau immeuble. On risque de perdre nos centres communautaires. On a déjà perdu les cours de français ici, alors on veut que tous ces services soient rétablis.
Ça peut vouloir dire combien les dédommagements en follow? Ça va être ma dernière question. Vous avez besoin de combien pour sauver la place?
OK, à cause de les sorties de la GRC, cet organisme communautaire de service à la famille chinoise a la misère de trouver un locataire pour les aider à payer l'hypothèque. L'hypothèque manquante est presque 2 millions.
Jean-François Coutier.
Ça dépend de...
Jean-François Coutier pour le Journal de Montréal. Il y a un article ce matin qui a été publié dans le journal. On fait état de certaines activités, notamment qu'on aurait demandé à des Chinois de retourner en République populaire de Chine, dans ces centres ici, et que la GRC a également fait des actions dans les centres dans les derniers mois pour mettre fin à certaines activités. Est-ce que vous avez eu connaissance d'activités de la GRC dans le centre depuis quelques mois?
À nos connaissances, ces organismes communautaires ont collaboré avec tous les demandes d'enquête de la GRC. Alors, vers le mi-mars, tous les membres de leur conseil d'administration acceptaient de donner des entrevues à la GRC. Et depuis, zéro. On a zéro nouvelle. Avant qu'on a lu que, pas de nouvelle, le gouvernement a fermé tous les postes de police. Mais entre-temps, qu'est-ce qui était fermé? Quelle sorte d'activités illégaux ont été mis fin? On n'a aucune idée. Les gens qui ont menacé, qui a menacé qui? On a zéro détail. Et c'est pour ça que le sénateur Wu a demandé, s'il y a la preuve contre la communauté, contre les individus, partage ça avec nous.
Est-ce que vous avez déjà eu connaissance aussi que votre organisme ou d'autres gens dans la communauté chinoise donnent des consignes sur qui voter, pour qui voter dans des élections municipales, provinciales et fédérales?
Mais bien sûr, à chaque élection, les gens jasent ensemble, même nous, à la table ronde du Parti chinois, on a encouragé la communauté de voter pour le parti qui va nous aider à sauver le Parti chinois. Vous avez déjà écrit plein d'articles sur comment on a risqué, on a presque perdu le Parti chinois. Alors, bien sûr, on jase entre nous, quel parti est bon pour les commerçants, quel parti est bon pour les services sociaux. Ça, c'est normal.
我直接说就行了。你好，自从疫情以来，外国媒体对中国进行了很多抹黑， 与不切实际的报道，从而引发了群众对于中国的就是恐惧还有未知。中加关系是否在您看来，中加关系是否走向更紧张的局势？然后在未来这样子的局势将以什么样的方式得到和平的解决呢？
The issue with Japanese services in Montreal and SinoPhobia is not in the first instance about Canada-China relations. Let's not get distracted. It's about the human rights, the legal rights. It's about fairness and justice for Canadian organizations, for Canadian citizens, for Quebec citizens. It is about what happens here in Canada. It's not about what happens in China. Now, the accusation has been made that there is a Chinese police station in this building, right where we are, and at SinoPhobia. But that allegation has not been proven. And the consequences of those allegations touch on Quebecers. They touch on Canadians. They touch on the organizations that are here in our country. And I encourage all of us to focus on that rather than get distracted by the Canada-China relationship.
It's for Senator Wen-Ho. Is it normal for a familiar organization who is subsidized by Quebec government to be promoting candidates during the election campaign?
I cannot answer that question. I have no knowledge of the organization being involved in election activities. What I did hear earlier is that there was a forum in this very room where candidates met with members of the community and answered their questions. That is a very appropriate thing for community organizations to do because it encourages participation from a community that has been underrepresented in all our elections. Because it encourages Chinese Canadians to vote in elections. And again, Chinese Canadians tend not to participate, but that is wrong. And after this incident, my friends, let this be a message to Chinese Canadians throughout the country, in Montreal, in Brossard, across Quebec, in all the provinces. Let this be the message that you have to participate in elections at the municipal level, at the provincial level, at the federal level. I don't care who you vote for, but vote for the right for Chinese Canadians to have a voice, to demand justice, to demand equal treatment. That is my answer to you.
You say that there is no proof of Chinese police activity. It seems like with the newspaper from today and from the 13th tip received by the RCMP about possible Chinese activity, how can you say this when the RCMP investigating is still ongoing?
There's proof, we look forward to seeing it. Until there's proof, there's a presumption of innocence, and there is no need to stigmatize or to punish this organization, which so far has already seen a drop in funding, precisely because people are fearful and people have jumped to the conclusion, partly because of reporting that presumes guilt. Because of that kind of prejudice reporting, this organization is suffering. And if there's evidence, this organization, I'm sure above all, would love to see it. We are all against foreign interference, especially harassment and intimidation of Canadians. That has to be stopped. But there are victims on all sides. And if this community organization is a victim of false allegations, then it also deserves a measure of justice.
My name is, I'm going to speak English to facilitate the exchange, even though the language of Quebec is French. My name is John Philpott. I'm an attorney, I'm a defense attorney, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Mouvement Québécois pour la Paix. And Senator Wu knows what I'm talking about, but I did the investigation, the consultation online about the new register for foreign activities. And I came to a point where they're suggesting criminal charges against those. For example, I'll give a specious example of Tina, who is doing work to raise the issue of China in Canada. Maybe she could be investigated. And Senator Kusako did that, and called for her to be investigated. So my question is, what is the attitude of the people at this table about the possible criminal charges for non-registry? My aside or my facts are that on the 16th or 17th of April in Manhattan, 2 Chinese men were indicted in seems like community centers for being Chinese police station. They're indicted under the by federal authorities, and believe me, when you're indicted by federal authorities in the U.S., watch out, because I've worked in those kinds of cases as a professional. So I'm very worried about this, and I'd like to know what the panelists think about this. And obviously, in my mind, is the idea of supporting the petition, which is what I think is really important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Philpott, for your question. It is referring to a slightly different issue, which is the proposed Foreign Influence Transparency Registry that has been put forward as an idea by the Government of Canada, and for which a public consultation is underway. It is too early to say whether this registry will go ahead and whether there will be criminal penalties for failure to register, but I and others have expressed concern about such a registry because of the very dangers that Mr. Philpott had raised and many other dangers of stigmatization and suppression of free speech and free association. But I don't want to go too much into that topic today because I'm really here to support Family Services of Greater Montreal, and it seemed correct. I'd like us to focus on that issue. But the fact that we have an issue in Montreal with 2 organizations that have been accused of being foreign agents without evidence is precisely why we should also be worried about the Foreign Influence Transparency Registry. There is a petition in the House of Commons to urge the government to be cautious about it. It's petition E4395. I encourage all of you to take a look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Philpott, for your question. I forgot to specify that question period today will be open to journalists, not to observers. J'ai oublié de mentionner que les questions aujourd'hui sont ouvertes aux journalistes. Donc, prochaine question, next question.
Matt Gilmore, CTV. I'll just speak loudly. I just wanted to, because I know you mentioned it in French, give you an opportunity in English. There's reporting today, quotes from the RCMP saying that there was illegal activity being done in these 2 community centers, that they were shut down, and that these community centers were operating as well, and that these police stations were operating from within them. There was legitimate community center work being done, but then there's also illegal activity. This is the statement from the RCMP. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to those statements. Was there at any point ever a police station, a so-called Chinese police station, operating from either of these 2 community centers?
Okay. Speaking as the former executive director, I can say I have zero knowledge of any illegal activities going on. Even the accusation of being a police station, what does that mean? If you're interested afterwards, we can do a tour of this place. There are no detention centers downstairs, like none. The women upstairs are social workers. I know them. I cannot picture any of them threatening anybody. So if there were illegal activities, what were they? The RCMP announced that they successfully closed down the police station part of this building. We don't know where the police stations were, and have they given instructions to anybody here on what they should stop doing or what they should be doing better in the future to prevent the opening of a Chinese station here or anywhere else in Montreal. You're right here in Chinatown. There's so many organizations, there's so many cultural associations, family associations. So what should we do to prevent any other organization here from being investigated or from opening a Chinese police station?
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is. We don't even know the definition of that.
Yes.
What are the acts that we're being approached of? We have zero information. Please, if you have some information, everything that we know comes from you, comes from the media. How ridiculous is that? And the burden of presumption, the presumption of innocence has been flipped backwards. Even by that question that you're asking, means that now we have to prove that we're innocent. Maître Walter Tom, Maître John Philpott, since when does this happen in Canada, that the burden is reversed and that we racialized minorities have to now prove that we're innocent?
Well, we don't even know the charges.
Yeah, we don't even know what we're charged with. Illegal activities, what is that? Like, go through the criminal code. Like, which article?
What we're asking for from the authorities is transparency and accountability. Once again, okay, there are consequences to all these different allegations. On the grassroots level, people from the Chinese community from all different backgrounds, they need these community services. Whether they're newcomers, whether they're skilled workers that come here, whether they're refugee claimants, whether Chinese Family Service in SinoPhobia, they serve everyone. It doesn't matter if you're, pro-Taiwan, it doesn't matter if you're pro-China, it doesn't matter, if you're, a new international student. They serve everyone. That's their mandate. And the thing that is so frustrating is, once again, anyways, Senator had touched upon it, okay, about the whole question of going backwards. Canada and Quebec is going backwards. My grandfather was a head taxpayer. He had to put up with the kind of racism that was legislated and it was part of policy. And yet, 100 years later, me, his grandson, okay, I have to, we have to see this once again. It's ridiculous. It's shameful. All we're asking for, once again, is transparency and accountability, particularly from the authorities. Because otherwise, the longer that they drag this on, the more the community suffers.
Senator Wu, I just wanted to follow up on your concerns around the foreign agent registry. Given that we know, that there has been at least one MP's family members were threatened for speaking out, I'm wondering if you see a need for such a registry, if it changes your perspective, or if there's a way to have something that doesn't then become xenophobic.
I'm very troubled by the reports of intimidation of an MP's family. This is unacceptable, it cannot be tolerated, and we must do everything we can to prevent it from happening again and to take action against perpetrators. The question on the Foreign Influence Transparency Registry is whether such a registry would have made any difference to this kind of harassment and intimidation. And my assessment is that it wouldn't. And when we think about whether we want a registry, that is the question. The question is not that there have been problems in our country. There have been all kinds of problems of foreign interference and malign foreign influence. I accept that freely, and we have to find ways to counter malign foreign influence. But is the registry the right tool? In my assessment, it isn't. Because it will capture individuals who are connected with foreign regimes, who are conducting benign activities. It will capture individuals who are connected to organizations and associations because of their kinship ties, because of their ancestry, because of the university they went to, because of the friends they have. And all of these activities, by far and away, will be benign. And so you have this wide net, potentially, this wide net of individuals caught up in a registry that will do nothing to impact the most egregious and objectionable forms of foreign interference, such as the one you described. My proposal, in terms of dealing with what you just described, is to look at the criminal code, to look at law enforcement, and to ask, well, first of all, we need to ask CSIS, why didn't they flag this issue? Was it not serious enough? Don't forget, this document was leaked, okay? We don't actually know where this document came from. And this is one document out of probably hundreds and thousands that CSIS produces every year. Why was this document leaked? What do we not know about this document that CSIS knows that caused them to not elevate the issue to the level of importance that I think it deserves? We don't know any of that information. But insofar as it happened, and insofar as it may happen again, I think the solution is law enforcement, it's criminal code, but it's not a registry that will capture many innocent people and innocent activities.
Rachel, could I ask you a question, please? As someone who works closely with the family Shu Yili, CBC News. As someone who works closely with family services, why do you think this is happening?
I interpret this to be the latest event in a series of xenophobic, anti-Chinese racism that began most recently with Trump. As soon as Trump started blasting China about the COVID-19 virus, well, we all suffered. All of you journalists must have covered stories about the vicious, violent attacks against all Asians, including indigenous people. And ever since then, we haven't stopped. We haven't stopped this horrible train crash, and I feel like I'm just watching the carts ahead of me, foreign registration. Meng Wanzhou, is it because Chinese women who rise to power are now considered to be a threat? We're not diminutive, subservient beings anymore? That we need to be attacked viciously by the state, by the police, by the media? The way I explain it is that this anti-Chinese hate and racism is always simmering below the surface, and from time to time it bubbles up. And despite commemorations of the Exclusion Act, despite the apology for the head tax that was given by Stephen Harper, the racism never went away. And I know that some of you are now going to see this, right? And I know this, and again, this is another example of what I'm talking about. When when Tina's group organized a demonstration to protect our democratic rights soon after March 9th, what did we see in the newspaper? Oh, visitors crashed around us. And if we don't do that, if we try to stand up and fight back and defend our rights, then we're, what do you call that? Like when we're gaslighted. then we're gaslighted and say, oh, if you do that, you're necessarily agents of the Chinese government. And I just want to refer to a question that you asked earlier. I ran for politics. I was the first Chinese-speaking person ever to run for the Bloc Québécois. I ran for Quebec Solidaire. And let me tell you, many people in my community support me, which is normal. Like in all communities, people run for politics. People have the right to have their community support them. And because of that, then if we win, it's not based on our own merits and our own capacity and our own integrity. It's because the Chinese government necessarily funded us. I never received a penny from Chinese government.
Follow up.
Bravo.
The only thing I just want to add to what May had said, it's always a question of who are we asking these questions to? Why does it always have to be racialized minorities that we ask these questions? Sommes-nous des Québécois ou non? Juste parce qu'on a une peau de couleur différente, pourquoi est-ce qu'on doit être traité toujours comme les autres? Est-ce qu'on pose ces mêmes questions, effectivement, à des gens qui ne sont pas des minorités visibles? Et c'est ça, ok, il est tellement difficile. Chaque fois que on se bâtit, effectivement, d'une communauté racialisée, là, les questions se posent. Là, vous parlez pour qui? Est-ce que vous êtes effectivement des Québécois? Ok? Vous parlez comme Québécois ou vous parlez plutôt pour votre communauté ethnique appuyée? So that's the whole question is about, how come every time, okay, when a racialized community member speaks, they can never speak as a Canadian or as a Quebecer. They're always stigmatized as being part of the other.
I just wanted to know how the people working at Family Services are feeling about all of this.
Well, thank you for that question. Like I said, I was their employer at one time, and their state of mind, their well-being is very, very important to me. And especially, like I said, when they work so hard, they work evenings and weekends, giving services to the community. Our seniors hold their dancing classes here because we're trying to lift them out of isolation. I'm a lawyer too. I do family law, and the Chinese Family Services, they have a wonderful woman who refer people who have suicidal thoughts, have psychological problems, and especially women who are victims of violence. They help these women find shelters, and then they refer these women to me. And by the way, they don't pay. I don't get even paid by my clients. I take legal aid mandates, so there's no money being exchanged. And so I help these women start over and get out of abusive relationships. So this is the wonderful work that the staff here does. And right now, they're all scared and stressed. I know that people are having trouble sleeping. They're nervous. They don't know if they will have a job like tomorrow or the next day. And they have families to feed. I think that Statistics Canada, and I know that Quebec, about 15 years ago, they did a research about the unemployment rate among Chinese immigrants, new Chinese immigrants, and Chinese women was far below, in terms of their employment abilities, was far below the average of Quebec women. And the poverty rate in our communities, again, look it up in Statistics Canada, we also fall far below everybody else in terms of the ability to have income, to live decently, access to health care. Again, that's all another area where we're missing out on. And so, so not only the staff who work upstairs help our community with all these issues, And it just breaks my heart that they themselves are living very, very precariously right now.
Hi, Sid Banerjee with the Canadian Press. I guess the question would be for you, May, or maybe Senator Wu. Just wondering to know what your message is to the RCMP in all this. What are you asking of the RCMP?
Do a better job. I mean, seriously, like, if I were investigating you, would I tell the world that I'm gonna scrutinize you?
She said it. She said it all. Provide information, clarity, and in the meantime, don't create more problems.
And actually, finally, we need protection, not from the Chinese government, but from you. Since, I've never been hurt by the Chinese government here. My children were raised here, I have my dog. None of us have ever been harmed by the Chinese government nor threatened. But right now, as coordinator of the Chinatown Roundtable, we're very, very scared and feel very, very threatened. And our members are afraid to even come to Chinatown because of this stigmatization.
There are reports of...
Is there anybody who has asked a question before?
I'm just gonna, are you guys able to affirm today that there have never been, or that any of these illegal activities here that the RCMP is alleging? I understand the burden of proof, and that whole concern of yours, but can you say that there's never been anything illegal here, that they're completely wrong in even doing this investigation? Are you ready to go that far?
Can you sit at the mic, please? The reason why all the board members, the staff, everybody connected with these organizations have publicly stated they will collaborate with the investigation is precisely is that there may be a possibility that something happened here. As you can see, this is a community center. It's open. So people rent rooms for meetings, for events, for dances, maybe, and you know, when you go into any public government building now, there's always a sign at the reception desk saying, no abuse, no violence will be tolerated. Well, I don't know, maybe one day a staff member had a bad day and said something mean to a client. So we don't know what happened, but so tell us, if the RCMP said that they found evidence, let us know. And also so that maybe, you know, one of our workers, they need a longer vacation or they need more breaks so that they're more patient. If a community organization outside the family services rents this room for something, we can't police what goes on between, like maybe in the back there's somebody, Paul is threatening someone. I don't know, so Paul, stop threatening. So it's really hard to answer your question because we don't know. There's no transparency.
So, nous, on avait dit en français, s'il vous plaît, parce que c'est très clair, on comprend très bien une situation comme ça.
Okay.
Donc, je ne sais pas si vous voulez qu'on vous vote pour votre question, allez-y.
Oui, alors, ok, je vais essayer de rappeler ce que je viens de dire. Ok, ici, c'est une centre communautaire. Alors, la définition de centre communautaire est un espace ouvert à toute la communauté. Ici, dans cette salle, on le loue, comme j'ai dit, pour les danses, pour les aînés, des activités culturelles par des organisations qui sont pas connexes avec le service de la famille chinoise. Alors, on ne peut pas contrôler qu'est-ce que s'est passé ici à l'intérieur. Puis, on a un staff, comme j'ai dit, ça se peut que moi, je sais que les femmes qui travaillent ici sont formidables, mais ça se peut qu'un jour, quelqu'un était fâché avec une cliente, quelqu'un a parlé de façon pas gentille. Donc, je sais pas, peut-être quelqu'un a interprété ça comme une menace ou des paroles pas gentilles. Donc, ça se peut que c'est des choses comme ça ont passé ici. Mais on ne sait pas. Puis si le GRC déclare qu'ils ont trouvé la preuve, partager ces preuves avec nous, puis on peut redresser cette situation au lieu de faire couler une institution qui dure presque 50 ans au service exemplaire, service essentiel à la communauté chinoise.
question to us is equivalent to me asking you and everyone else in this room, have you done anything illegal in your life? Ever? In your home? In your workplace? Crossing the street? In private? It's an absurd question. Nobody here would be able to answer that question. A meaningful question would be this: have you embezzled? Have you robbed a bank? Have you broken into a house? Did you hit your wife and abuse her? That would be a reasonable question because that's a specific allegation. We have no specific allegation, so it's impossible to answer the question. And with due respect, even asking the question is unfair. Because you would not want me to ask me that.
I mean,
Go ahead.
no, it's just the RCMP is making these allegations, so we're.
What is the allegation? That's it.
That's what I'm asking.
That's it.
What is the allegation?
Ask the RCMP.
We asked them.
Yeah, but now
Well, they answer. They say that some individuals were asked to go back to because of maybe some comments that they made on behavior that they had. They go back to China so that they
Provide the evidence. They have no knowledge of that. Provide the evidence.
Qui a dit ça? Puis qui a dit ça à qui?
Et quand? Où?
Would they do that to any,
Vous êtes journaliste là?
would they do that to any other race?
I have no idea. I just read the newspaper. I didn't write the article.
Why single out the Asian?
Be a reporter?
Someone who has an article?
Nous avons un temps aujourd'hui vous votre engagement. Ça va nous permettre une dernière question. We will have one last question past our allotted time. If anybody has a specific question.
I have. Yeah, I'm sorry. There are the thing of the police station in Canada. It's in other countries also. There are articles about it. There are media report on it, and there are actions from other police police organizations in the world. Do you think it could exist in other parts of the world, in other Western countries? These kind of police stations.
First of all, these allegations stem from the so-called research of a Spanish organization called Safeguard Defenders. I know very little about them. Do you know anything about them? Do you know what their agenda is? Do you know who provides them with funding? Do you know the quality of their research? Isn't that investigative reporting? Why are we taking the word of a foreign organization making allegations, grave allegations that impact Canadians? Why are we taking the word of a foreign interference operation in our country and causing all this damage? I don't know what goes on. I read the newspapers too. But what strikes me about all these other stories of Chinese police stations in other Western countries is that there's virtually no information on what is it they're doing, what the alleged illegal activities are, just like we're seeing here. Look, all of us here are opposed to foreign interference. All of us are against harassment, intimidation of Canadians. We need to use every tool we have, legal tool, to stop foreign interference, harassment, and intimidation. But we cannot do it at the expense of the rights and privileges of our citizens. I just came from upstairs, the second floor, the third floor, where, in fact, this organization is providing services to Quebecers. And on the wall, prominently displayed where services are provided is the Charte québécoise de droit et liberté de la personne. That is what is guiding, I believe, that's what's guiding the work of this organization. That should also be what guides the work of the RCMP, of the Minister of Public Services, of Public Security, and of all of the journalists.
I think that's probably all the time we have. We would like to thank all of you for taking the time. We really appreciate that. You're paying attention